George Foreman was born in Marshall, Texas, and grew up in Houston's tough Fifth Ward alongside his 6 siblings. Raised by his stepfather, J.D. Foreman, George's biological father was Leroy Moorhead. In his autobiography, George admits to being a troubled teen, dropping out of school at 15 and getting involved in street crime. But at 16, after seeing a Job Corps ad on TV, he had a change of heart. He convinced his mother to sign him up, earning his GED and learning carpentry and bricklaying. A supervisor helped him move to Pleasanton, California, where his focus shifted from football, his first love and Jim Brown his idol, to boxing, setting him on the path to greatness. At the 1968 Mexico City Olympics, George Foreman claimed gold in the heavyweight boxing division. In the final bout, he overpowered Jonas Sepulus of the Soviet Union, with the referee stopping the fight in the second round. Sepulus, a 29-year-old veteran from Lithuania with over 220 amateur fights, was bloodied by Foreman's punches in the first round and forced to take a standing 8 count in the second. Despite Sepulus' experience, the 19-year-old Foreman dominated. Foreman's journey to gold included defeating Poland's Luke Jantrella on points, stopping Romania's Ion Alex in the third round, and knocking out Italy's Giorgio Bambini in the semifinals. After his decisive victory over Sepulus, Foreman proudly waved a small American flag, bowing to the crowd in celebration. To this day, Foreman says winning Olympic gold was the greatest achievement of his boxing career, even surpassing his world titles. George Foreman's journey in boxing started with a bang. On January 26, 1967, he stepped into the ring for his very first amateur fight and knocked out his opponent in the first round, winning the Parks Diamond Belt Tournament. That same year, in February, he won the San Francisco Examiners Golden Gloves Tournament in the junior division, and not long after, he claimed victory at the Las Vegas Golden Gloves by knocking out Thomas Cook in the senior division. The following year, Foreman's rise continued. In February 1968, he knocked out L.C. Brown to win the San Francisco Examiners senior title. Just a month later, he took the heavyweight title at the National Boxing Championships in Toledo, Ohio, by defeating Henry Crump. That summer, in July 1968, he had the chance to spar with former world heavyweight champion Sonny Liston. Foreman later admitted that Liston was the only man who ever made him back up in the ring, calling him the scariest fighter he'd ever faced. On September 21, 1968, Foreman secured his spot on the U.S. boxing team for the Mexico City Olympic Games after beating Otis Evans. With a record of 16-4 going into the Olympics, Foreman won the gold medal after the referee stopped his final bout against Jonas Sepulus in the second round. Under the guidance of his coach, Robert "Pappy" Galt, Foreman finished his amateur career with a record of 22-4 before turning professional. George Foreman made his professional debut in 1969, starting with a bang by knocking out Donald Walheim in 3 rounds in New York City. That year, Foreman fought an impressive 13 times, winning every match, 11 by knockout. In 1970, his journey toward the heavyweight title picked up steam. He won all 12 of his bouts that year, with 11 of those victories coming by knockout. One of his toughest challenges came from Gregorio Peralta at Madison Square Garden, where Foreman won by decision. Peralta's quick counterpunching and sharp boxing style exposed some of Foreman's vulnerabilities, but it only made him stronger. Shortly after, Foreman took on George Chuvalo, securing a technical knockout in just 3 rounds. That victory was followed by quick wins over Charlie Polite and Boone Kirkman, both in under 4 rounds. These fights marked Foreman's first big wins at the world level. Peralta was ranked number 10, and Chuvalo was ranked number 7 in the world at the time. By 1971, Foreman had racked up 7 more knockout victories, including a rematch with Peralta, whom he stopped in the 10th round, and a second-round knockout of Leroy Caldwell. With an undefeated record of 32-0, 29 by knockout, Foreman earned the top spot as the number 1 contender for the heavyweight title by both the World Boxing Association and the World Boxing Council. In 1972, George Foreman, still undefeated with a string of knockouts, was set to take on the unbeaten world heavyweight champion, Joe Frazier. Frazier had claimed the title after it was stripped from Muhammad Ali, and he defended it 4 times, including a famous 15-round win over Ali in 1971. Despite Foreman's size and power, most people didn't expect him to beat Frasier, and he entered the fight as a 3-1 underdog. The fight, known as the Sunshine Showdown, took place on January 22, 1973, in Kingston, Jamaica. To everyone's surprise, Foreman dominated from the start. He knocked Frasier down 6 times in just 2 rounds, with the legendary Howard Cosell shouting, "Down goes Frasier! Down goes Frasier!" Frasier, who entered the ring with a 29-0 record, 25 KOs, just couldn't handle Foreman's relentless power. Though Frasier kept getting back to his feet, his balance was gone, and he couldn't escape Foreman's heavy punches. Referee Arthur Mercant finally stepped in, calling an end to the one-sided match, and Foreman was crowned the new heavyweight champion. George Foreman was often seen by the media as distant and unfriendly during his time as champion. Reporters claimed he sneered and rarely made himself available for interviews. Foreman later admitted he was modeling himself after former champion and sparring partner Sonny Liston. Despite the perception, Foreman stayed focused on defending his title. He successfully did so twice in his first reign as champion. His first defense took place in Tokyo, where he faced Puerto Rican heavyweight champion Jose Roman. Although Roman wasn't considered a top contender, having beaten a few solid fighters, he was ranked number 7 by The Ring in 1973. Foreman made quick work of Roman, knocking him out in just 2 minutes, one of the fastest KOs in heavyweight championship history. Foreman's next title defense came in 1974 in Caracas, Venezuela, against a far tougher opponent, future Hall of Famer Ken Norton. Norton, known for his powerful punches and cross-arm defense, had a strong 30-2 record and had famously broken Muhammad Ali's jaw in a points victory just a year earlier. Norton had given Ali a hard time in their 2 fights, winning the first and losing the second by a narrow margin. However, Norton had a reputation for struggling against big punchers, and that reputation began to take shape in this fight. After a close first round, Foreman landed a crushing uppercut in the second, sending Norton reeling into the ropes. Though Norton didn't go down immediately, he was clearly shaken and unsteady on his feet. Foreman quickly capitalized, knocking Norton down twice more in rapid succession before the referee stepped in to stop the fight. Foreman later said, "Ken was dangerous when he got going. I couldn't let him get into the fight." This fight, dubbed the Caracas Caper, solidified Foreman's dominance as he cruised past another top contender. The win pushed his record to an impressive 40-0 with 37 knockouts. On October 30, 1974, George Foreman faced Muhammad Ali in one of the most iconic fights in boxing history, the Rumble in the Jungle, held in Kinshasa, Zaire. The fight more than lived up to the hype. A month before the bout, during training, Foreman suffered a cut above his eye, forcing the fight to be delayed. The injury impacted his preparation, as he couldn't spar for fear of reopening the wound. Looking back, Foreman remarked, "That was the best thing that happened to Ali in Africa. The fact that I had to prepare without sparring." Meanwhile, Ali took full advantage of the delay, spending time with the people of Zaire and winning their hearts while also relentlessly mocking Foreman in the lead-up to the fight. Foreman entered the match as the clear favorite, having demolished Joe Frazier and Ken Norton, both undefeated and highly regarded, in just 2 rounds each. Despite the odds, the stage was set for a legendary showdown. When Foreman and Ali finally clashed in the ring, Ali took a surprisingly aggressive approach, using his speed to outscore Foreman early. By the second round, Ali changed tactics, leaning back against the ropes and allowing Foreman to throw heavy body punches while countering with sharp shots to Foreman's face whenever he saw an opening. Despite his powerful body blows, Foreman struggled to land any clean hits to Ali's head. The loose ropes in the ring played a key role, and Foreman later accused Ali's trainer, Angelo Dundee, of loosening them to help Ali avoid his punches. Dundee, however, claimed he tightened the ropes and that the rope-a-dope strategy was Ali's own invention. Ali, known for his quick movement, used the rope-a-dope plan to tire Foreman, who hadn't been taken past the 4th round in years. While absorbing heavy punishment to his body, Ali waited for his moment, landing precise shots to Foreman's head when possible. Ali admitted later that he was out on his feet twice during the fight, but as Foreman began to tire, his punches became wild and less less effective. Sensing his opportunity, Ali began to taunt Foreman, who was clearly running out of steam, throwing weak punches. By the 8th round, Ali seized control. Coming off the ropes, he unleashed a series of right hooks that left Foreman dazed and stumbling. A final left hook straight right combination landed flush on Foreman's jaw, sending him crashing to the canvas for the first time in his career. Ali won by knockout, and at the time of the stoppage, he was ahead on all scorecards. Foreman later remarked, "It just wasn't my night," but also controversially claimed he had been drugged by his trainer before the fight. Although Foreman pushed for a rematch with Ali, it never happened. Some believed Ali was avoiding another fight with Foreman, opting instead to face less dangerous opponents. But Ali also took on tough fighters like Ron Lyle and rematches with Joe Frazier and Ken Norton. In 1975, George Foreman aimed to reignite his career with a unique exhibition match called Foreman vs. 5, where he planned to fight 5 opponents in a single night. Having taken a break after his loss to Muhammad Ali, this event was meant to showcase his power and draw attention back to him. However, things didn't go as planned. Critics were quick to point out that his opponents were mostly unknowns with unimpressive records. When Foreman entered the arena, he was greeted with boos and chants of Ali. Ali from the crowd. To add to the drama, Ali was ringside as a commentator, and the two engaged in a heated verbal exchange during the fights. After knocking out his first 3 opponents, Foreman, frustrated and exhausted, couldn't finish the last 2, leading to even more jeers from the audience. The event left doubts about Foreman's ability to return to the top, but that all changed in 1976 when he announced his official comeback with a fight against Ron Lyle, the 5th-ranked heavyweight in the world. Their match turned into a brutal slugfest. Lyle landed a massive punch in the first round that sent Foreman stumbling. The second round saw Foreman almost knocking Lyle out, but the bell saved him. In the 4th round, Lyle knocked Foreman down twice, but Foreman, showing incredible resilience, got back up each time. In the 5th round, both fighters threw caution to the wind, trading heavy blows. Finally, Foreman unleashed a series of punches that knocked Lyle out for good, giving him a dramatic victory. The bout was later named Fight of the Year by the Ring magazine. Next, Foreman took on Joe Frazier in a highly anticipated rematch. Though Frazier was still a top contender, the fight was dominated by Foreman, who knocked Frazier out in the 5th round. Foreman then went on to defeat Scott Ledoux and John Dino Dennis to close out the year strong. But 1977 brought a life-changing moment for Foreman. After defeating Pedro Augusto, he faced the skilled Jimmy Young in Puerto Rico. Fighting cautiously, Foreman allowed Young to control the pace. By the later rounds, Foreman was exhausted and even suffered a knockdown in the 12th round, ultimately losing by unanimous decision. After the fight, Foreman collapsed in his dressing room, suffering from exhaustion and heat stroke. He later described having a near-death experience where he felt trapped in a dark, terrifying place. In desperation, Foreman called out to God and experienced a profound spiritual awakening. Following this experience, Foreman became a born-again Christian, dedicating his life to his faith. Though he didn't officially retire, he stepped away from boxing, becoming an ordained minister and preaching at the Church of the Lord Jesus Christ in Houston. He also opened a youth center in his name and continues to share his testimony on Christian television programs, inspiring others with his journey from heavyweight champion to man of faith. In 1990, George Foreman faced ex-title contender Jerry Cooney in Atlantic City. Cooney, despite a lengthy layoff, was still respected for his heavy hands. In the first round, Cooney shook Foreman, but in the second, Foreman answered back with a series of hard punches. He dropped Cooney twice, sealing the win with a knockout. Foreman would go on to win 4 more bouts that year. The next year, George Foreman got the chance to face Evander Holyfield, the undisputed heavyweight champion, in a major pay-per-view fight. At 42 years old, not many believed Foreman had a real shot at winning. Weighing 257 pounds, Foreman pressed forward, taking several hard hits from Holyfield, but managing to land a few strong punches of his own. Despite being far behind on points, Foreman shocked everyone by lasting all 12 rounds, though he lost on the judges' scorecards with scores of 116 to 111, 115 to 112, and 117 to 110. One of the most memorable moments came in the 7th round when Foreman knocked Holyfield off balance, but then got staggered himself by a sharp combination. A year later, Foreman took on Alex Stewart, who had been knocked out by Mike Tyson in the first round of their match. Foreman dropped Stewart twice in the 2nd round, but he wore himself out, and Stewart fought back strong. By the end of the fight, Foreman's face was swollen and bloodied, but he won by a majority decision, with scores of 94 to 94 and 94 to 93 twice. In 1993, Foreman got another title shot, this time for the vacant WBO title against Tommy Morrison. Morrison used a smart strategy of staying out of Foreman's range, moving and refusing to go toe-to-toe. After 12 rounds, Morrison won by unanimous decision with 2 scores of 117 to 110 and one of 118 to 109. During this time, Foreman also dabbled in acting, starring in a short-lived sitcom called George, where he played a retired boxer. The show aired 10 episodes in 1993, but was canceled after 9. In 1994, Foreman was ready for another title shot, this time against Michael Moorer, who had just beaten Evander Holyfield for the IBF and WBA titles. Even though Foreman had lost to Morrison and was unranked, his name still carried enough weight to make the fight happen. On November 5, 1994, in Las Vegas, Foreman faced Moorer, wearing the same red trunks he had on when he lost to Ali 20 years earlier. For 9 rounds, Moorer outboxed him easily, staying ahead on all scorecards. But in the 10th round, Foreman launched a surprise attack, landing several punches before delivering a short right hand that knocked Moorer out cold. With that one punch, Foreman became the heavyweight champion again at age 45, breaking multiple records. Oldest fighter to win a world title, longest gap between title wins, 20 years, and the biggest age difference, 19 years, between champion and challenger in a heavyweight fight. Talk of a super fight with Mike Tyson soon followed, but it never happened after Tyson signed with Don King. In 1995, Foreman defended his IBF title against Axel Schultz, winning by a controversial decision. When the IBF ordered a rematch and Foreman refused, he was stripped of the title, though he continued to be recognized as the lineal heavyweight champion. Foreman kept fighting, beating Crawford Grimsley and Lou Savarese before a controversial loss to Shannon Briggs in 1997. This turned out to be Foreman's final fight at age 48. A comeback fight against Larry Holmes in 1999 was planned but fell through. Foreman officially left boxing to become a commentator and focus on other ventures. In 2004, Foreman briefly teased another comeback at 55, but the fight never materialized, reportedly due to the influence of his wife. Outside of the ring, Foreman found faith after a near-death experience following his fight with Jimmy Young in 1977. He became a born-again Christian and later a pastor, opening a community center and leading church services in Houston. His sermons focus on sharing lessons from the Bible, and he always emphasizes that above all, serving God is the true goal in life. George Foreman has been married to Mary Joan Martelli since 1985. Before that, he was married 4 times. To Adrian Calhoun from 1971 to 1974, Cynthia Lewis from 1977 to 1979, Sharon Goodson from 1981 to 1982, and Andrea Skeet from 1982 to 1985. Foreman has 12 children, 5 sons and 7 daughters. All 5 of his sons are named George. George Jr., George III, Monk, George IV, Big Wheel, George V, Red, and George VI, Little Joey. On his website, Foreman says he gave them all the same name so they would always feel connected. He tells them, "If one of us rises, we all rise together. If one falls, we all fall together." George III followed in his father's footsteps by becoming a boxer and businessman. George IV appeared on Season 2 of American Grid, where he finished 7th. His daughters are Natalia, Leola, Frida, Michi, Georgetta, Isabella, and Courtney. Natalia and Leola are with his current wife, Mary Joan. Frida, Michi, and Georgetta are from different relationships. In 2009, he adopted Isabella, and in 2012, he adopted Courtney. Frida, who had a 5-1 record as a professional boxer, retired in 2001, and tragically passed away in 2019 at age 42. Isabella lives in Sweden and has been blogging since 2010 under the name Bella Nutella. In 2013, the American Legion awarded Foreman its James V Day Good Guy Award to honor his patriotism and community service. When George Foreman returned from retirement, he credited his success to healthy eating. Salton Incorporated approached him to be the face of their fat-reducing grill. By 2009, the George Foreman grill had sold over 100 million units. While Foreman hasn't revealed exactly how much he made from the endorsement, in 1999, Salton paid him $138 million to use his name. Before that, he earned about 40% of the profits from each grill sold, making up to $4.5 million a month at its peak. By 2011, he had made over $200 million from the endorsement, far more than he earned in his boxing career.